You know, Jim Shepard was on the program the other day with New Millennium, Big Berkey, and he was talking about the fact that he's been studying the charts. He used to work with Merrill Lynch for 10 years, and he feels as though that this bailout money the recent bailout money has given us another 6 months to prepare for the next downturn. In other words, the next shoe to fall. Would you agree with that? Because that's given people a lot of peace in the fact that they can start preparing or continue preparing for the next 6 months, or do you think it's going to the next shoe will fall sooner than that?
Well, I am the official peace deliverer this morning, and I think it's going to take longer than that because we have a stimulus package that begins next month that puts spendable money into people's hands, and the part of the stimulus package for this year is small, but the amount of money being shoveled into the system, $12.8 trillion worth, between the two of them, they're going to keep the economy from plunging.
Okay, we're going to be right back after this 4-minute break. Stay tuned.
Your love gives me such a thrill. But your love won't pay my bills. I want money.
I think that's Richard Summers, or Larry Summers.
No kidding. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Power Hour. Coming up on 25 minutes past the hour, this is Dave.
And Joyce. I think that was Larry Summers, who received hundreds of thousands of dollars in speaking fees last year from firms that have direct financial interest before the government or are intimately involved in the White House bank relief programs. In other words, he got lots of money for speaking engagements. Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Joyce and Dave, and we have joining us today Bob Chapman, the International Forecaster newsletter. The phone number is 877-479-8178. If you would like to find out more about the International Forecaster newsletter, it is 877-479-8178, or go to theinternationalforecaster.com. Don't forget, it's Forecaster. In his newsletter, his most recent newsletter, he doesn't mince words. He says all derivative transactions should be frozen and settled as best as possible. Legislation is needed, at least temporarily, to eliminate tax deductibility of interest for everyone. Corporate taxes should be cut to 17%. If derivatives are still to be used, they have to be regulated. He goes on and on. He doesn't mince words, and that's the International Forecaster newsletter that you can get by calling 877-479-8178. Our guest, Bob Chapman, the editor of that newsletter, is rarely wrong. Now, it was brought to my attention that gold has dropped down into the 800s again. Some people are saying that it's going to drop even lower than that. I mean, is this a time that people should be holding out to purchase gold? This is probably something I should ask Ted Anderson a little bit later at the bottom of the hour. But what is going on with gold, though? Seriously, Bob?
Well, I think the main thing is people misunderstand the sale of gold into the market by the IMF. And the gold can't be sold unless the U.S. government approves it. That's our Congress. And there's other legislations that have to do the same thing. And there's a big line waiting for gold by countries. And that gold's never going to hit the market. Historically, if you go back to the last time the government or IMF or whoever was a gold seller back in the 70s, you'll find that gold fell off maybe $20 or $30, and after the sale was over into the market, gold doubled. So it's not something to be concerned about, but it's a propaganda weapon, and that's why gold has reacted the way that it has here. And there's nothing overbought about gold at all. It's recently come back from 1,000 and then from 960. It's tested the 880, 900 area. This is the sixth time. And so I think there's a pretty good chance it's going to hold here. The news out there is dreadful. We're going to have unbelievable inflation with the increase of $12.8 trillion in spending by one program or another by the Treasury or the Fed, plus the monetization that's going on, whereby the Treasury sells the Fed Treasury bonds and the Fed buys them, only the Fed doesn't have any money. And so they create it out of thin air. And that credit goes back to the Treasury, which they spend, monetizing the money in the market. And then what happens next is that the Fed sells bonds into the market, making it even worse. So based upon fundamentals, there's absolutely no reason for gold to go down. It should be going up. And, of course, you've had the U.S. government in the market manipulating it, so that hasn't helped things. It's a terrible set of circumstances when your own government is your enemy.
That's right.
You know, I wanted to refer back to peace of mind that we were talking about before the break, and that is between the stimulus that's going in and the stimulus package this year and next. Most of it's going in next year because it's an election year, and Democrats want to get reelected, and they're the ones who were behind the creation or passing of that. And I think that we were about a minus 6.3 or 6.5 of GDP in the fourth quarter. I think the first quarter will be about the same. And I think the second, third, and fourth quarters will range from even to a minus 4. And that'll probably go on for about 6 quarters, maybe 7. And that means we're going to have a flattening out in the downturn that should last up to the next election.
Okay, we got a 3-minute break. We're going to be right back we'll talk to Ted Anderson for a few minutes about what's going on with gold, and back to Bob Chapman, theinternationalforecaster.com. Back in 3. Stay tuned. Getting back to Bob Chapman, who is the editor of the Financial Times, or the Financial Times, yeah, he should be, the International Forecaster, theinternationalforecaster.com. Bob, give us a scenario of what you see over the next 3 months. What do you think is going to take place? Are we going to continue to bail out the United States and throw money down a dark hole, take over the banks, take over the healthcare system? What are you seeing?
Well, I think that you're going to see a lot of banks go under, and it's just simply because they made bad investments, both in real estate and in securities that were related to real estate. The number, when all is said and done over the next several years, could be anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000. Nobody really knows. Not even the government with their inspections and everything else.
And even if they knew, they wouldn't tell us. They wouldn't tell us who the weak banks
they
are.
might tell us the wrong thing, too, because they have a penchant for not telling the truth. So I expect, what's in the pipeline, which I was speaking of earlier, the money and the stimulus program, the money coming in from the Fed buying Treasury paper, and the Fed and the Treasury Department spending money to bail banks and brokerage firms and insurance companies and others out. We're talking almost $13 trillion, and that figure should increase perhaps to as much as $15 trillion this year. And next year it could range as high as $30 trillion. They know this, but they're not going to tell you that. And the reason they know it is that history tells them that once you start and you get along this road of putting money and credit into the market, you can't stop until it collapses. And so we're going to have a hiatus here, which should last a year and a quarter, where the economy will get slightly better, but the deterioration of the underlying assets will get worse. And when this money has been spent, and a good part of it will have been spent probably by June, July of next year, then all of that spending, which has been keeping the economy from going down further, will be over. And they're either going to have to increase the spending up to $30 trillion and have another stimulus program, which they very well might, then it could be extended further.
All right,
So,
but do you agree
going back to what the gentleman said, over the next 6 months, I don't agree with that. I think it'll take probably a year and a quarter for any more real deterioration, unless something happens like a war, attacks within the United States, whether they're real or they're created by our own government. It doesn't make any difference. Banning those sorts of things happening, we're going to get a little hiatus here.